Hi everyone, my name is Elisha Tan and I'm the founder of Tech Ladies. And today I'm so happy and excited to be speaking to you while I'm based in Singapore. So let's bring up the slides and I'd like to share with you what my startups failures have taught me over the years. And yeah, on the screen, you can also find my Twitter handle. So just in case this whole virtual speaking thing doesn't work out, in case my connectivity doesn't hold, you can find me on Twitter easily. So before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. I am passionate in bringing people together to solve big problems. And I've been really fortunate to be able to do that through Tech Ladies, which is a community for women learning how to code. And we have been really successful in bringing the community together to help drive gender diversity in tech. I'm also really fortunate to work as a developer programs manager, at a big tech company where I manage and grow developer communities around Asia, helping to bring um, underserved developers with opportunities for education and training. I also run a community called DevRel Asia, where we bring developer relations professions in Asia together so that we can learn and grow for each other. And just in case if I haven't been doing enough in my life, I also help with technical consultancy for nonprofits, helping them to digitize the way they currently serve their communities. So as you can see, what I do right now is I am very much in the tech community and very plugged in with aligned with my vision. But my journey in tech didn't start that way. 10 years ago, when I was a fresh grad entrepreneur, that's when my journey in tech started. And back then, I was a fresh graduate with a big dream because I wanted to be able to help people make a living with what they are passionate about. And I felt that it was such a shame that a lot of my talented friends are not pursuing a career that they are interested in because what they're interested in don't make money. And at that point of time, what I felt success to was for me is to become a successful CEO of a multi-billion dollar startup. And I want to be able to have that kind of wealth and growth while helping other people to excel in their life. But I have a few problems. So see, even though I was a fresh grad, I was a fresh grad with a psychology degree, and I know nothing about technology. All of my technical skills are only proficient to create the graphics that you see on screen. And that was certainly a very big problem when it comes to creating a tech startup. And not only that, as a fresh grad, I have no experience, no money, and no co-founder. So there was a lot of challenges that I had to overcome by joining an accelerator program, which I was the first female graduate of the Singapore chapter of the program called Founder Institute. I got a government grant and I couldn't find a tech co-founder, and so I learned how to code. And with my technical skills, I was able to just put together a very simple MVP to help test if there's a demand for the product that I wanted to build. And back then, the product that I wanted to build was a platform where people can say what they want to learn and find an instructor with that skill, and then you can conduct the lesson for profit, of course. So this MVP and my technical skills, however ghetto it is, really helped to show that there was a little bit of traction. And that's how I eventually launched my tech startup called Learn Me. And this is a platform for in-person marketplace for whether you want a private or you want a group class, you can find classes for anything you want to learn. And because it was a fairly novel idea about 10 years ago, and myself as a young solo founder who can't code, I did have a lot of media attention. So I was invited to places as a mentor or a speaker, and I do have national athletes or well-known VCs on the platform. So on the outside, it looks like everything is going so well, and I'm definitely on track to become the successful CEO that I wanted to be. But all of this press and all of this media was just the front Because what's happening on the back end is that I have been struggling the entire lifetime of my startup. This is the real Google Analytics of the traffic to the site. And as you can see, it's not up and to the right. This is a flat line. And I simply couldn't get the kind of traction and the kind of retention that can help make my startup an actual success, despite of how it looked like on the outside. And so this is one of like the first lesson that failure has taught me, that media is not traction. Traction is traction. I thought I spent a lot of time trying to chase media, saying that, hey, if I get featured on this website, on that newspaper, I'm going to get the kind of traffic that I want, and I'm going to get that kind of traction and eventually become successful. But the thing is that a lot of this media, they may drive some traffic, but this traffic does not convert to revenue. It's really all just about feeling good, I felt. And after a lot of years of trying out new things, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. Every kind of idea that I put out, any kind of new press that I'm trying to chase for, doesn't seem to be leading to any kind of tangible success. And that's how I thought that, hey, something's got to change. And that's how I packed my bags and moved to the USA, to Silicon Valley specifically, in order to be an environment where I can meet people to help me find my answer. And Silicon Valley back then, even now, is still a hub for tech startup, for tech entrepreneurship. And what I really enjoyed about that place is, I'm very grateful for the experience, is how people over there obviously are very they have like years of domain expertise in tech startups, in funding, and people are just so open in sharing their knowledge. So when I was there, I wherever I meet people at an event, or go stalk some people on Twitter to figure out what event they're speaking at, I will always ask this question: what would you do if you were me? Would you persevere in your startup, pivot to something else, or would you just call it quits? And there are many different answers to this question. But what I learn or what I observe is that the more experienced someone is, the more likely that he or she would answer that it is a very personal decision. There's no right or wrong answer. And the first few times, to be really honest with you, the first few times when I heard this answer, I was pissed off, because I've traveled, packed my bags, and leave my country to go across from Singapore to US, and you're telling me that the answer is all within me. So that took me a while to really understand what that answer means. And when I reflect on the learnings that I had from my time in Silicon Valley, I learned that there are two questions that I need to ask myself in order to find my answer to whether I should persevere or simply shut down my business. And the questions are, do I have the ideas to move on? And do I have the resources to do that? And at a point of time, I've been working on this startup for 4 years, and I've tried so many things that I could, and things that I know that ideas that I had at the time, always holding on to hope that perhaps the next experiment, the next thing I do is going to turn things around miraculously almost. And by that point of time when I was in Silicon Valley, I was simply too burnt out to continue. I was just exhausted. And so with that, I decided that it is time to shut down my business, my startup. And this was one of the hardest thing I had to do in my adult life. And 10 years later, it still is. And the sort of messages that you see on screen now is the literal text that I sent to my friend when I was when I've made out that decision. And I remember how there was a physical reaction to failure, because for days I was I just cried every time I'm alone, And food, for some reason, was tasteless to me for a couple of weeks. And what I was really, really upset about was that I didn't start this startup to be super rich. I didn't start this startup to be famous. I started this startup because of my passion in helping people live their best life, living the life that living their best life so that they can make money out of the skills, out of their passion. And yet I couldn't do the same for myself, for my passion as a tech startup entrepreneur. And it's something that I have overcome so many challenges as a young woman in tech, not technical as well. So it was something that is really difficult to to um, digest and understand that the startup that I built with my bare hands are also destroyed by the very same hands. And for years, when I was building this startup, I have always seen myself as part of the company, or rather, the company is part of me. And my identity is so closely intertwined with the startup that it was really difficult to understand that the startup has failed. Because at that point of time, all I can think was that I am the failure, not that my startup was a failure. And it was an incredibly lonely journey because when you open up TechCrunch, all you see are startups getting funded. When you go to every meetup and talk to different founders, everything seems to be going super well for them. And I felt really alone in the sense that I started to wonder if I was the only one who's struggling. And I really wanted someone to to tell me, that they could relate to my experience, that what I'm feeling, what I'm going through it's um it's normal, that it happens, and most importantly that it will pass. And given that I've tied my identity so closely to the work and the output and the results of my work, I simply couldn't relax even after I shut my startup down. I figured, maybe I should start a new startup immediately so that it doesn't seem that I have failed the startup, but rather I've pivoted, you know. And and that turned out to be a really horrible move because on top of dealing with just the stress and the depression of a startup failure, I was trying to add on the stress and the anxiety of creating a new startup. And that was very, very harmful for me. Fortunately, I had a friend who advised me to go out and smell the roses. Then I took the time to pick myself up, to reflect, and most importantly, I give myself the time to grieve. And when I decided to pick myself up again and get a job, I do worry a lot because in my startup, I was a generalist. I know a little bit of a lot of things, and I wasn't sure if that is something that the market would appreciate. So these are all the companies that I've applied for, and maybe surprisingly or not surprisingly, I was rejected by all of them. And yeah, so one of the things that I learned from this experience is that A, it is very, very painful, and B, this is the lesson that I wanted to share. Nobody owes you anything. You can be down and out. You can be, and as myself, I failed a startup. I'm down and out, but it doesn't mean that people owe me anything to pick me up from the rut that I was in. And maybe this sounds a little bit harsh, but I felt that having this lesson helped me to be more grateful for the people who do help me, for the people who do give me a chance. And soon after my startup failed, after I returned back to Singapore, I did eventually get a job at a small media company. And what I learned is that you can have a lot of job application rejections. That's really sad, but that's also fine because at the end of the day, you simply just need one job from one company, someone who will just give you that one chance to get your feet up again. And that to me was how I saw this opportunity. So at this media company, I was an ecosystem builder, and I get to travel around the region, understand different startup ecosystem, rub shoulders with the who's who of tech industry, and I really felt that I'm finally gaining the confidence to stand up on my feet again. Until I was fired 6 months after starting the job for not being a culture fit. And when I first heard that, I was livid because I felt incredibly unfair that I've overcome so much challenges to start my startup, and I failed that startup. I tried to pick myself up, and this is what I get. Like, don't I deserve a break? And at that point in time, I was ready to give up. I've I thought that perhaps all this, having chasing your passion, a meaningful life, a mission, all of those stuff are just um, childish dream. And I felt that perhaps it was time for me to grow up and just get a job, that I don't care for, as long as I can have the kind of salary to just keep on living. And then I realized this old lesson: to give myself time to grieve, instead of, say, just writing off my entire future back then in my mid 20s. So soon after being fired from that job, I took a vacation to Hong Kong, where I spent a lot of time taking ferries to and fro the different islands. And this is one of the photos that I took in the boat ride, because the boat ride was cheap entertainment and it was pretty relaxing. And in that time of reflection, I sort of discovered a silver lining that over the last 6 months, yes, it was a short time of employment. However, I've saved up a lot of my savings and a lot of my salary. And if I could start a startup on my non-existent fresh grad savings, then I could do so much more with actual money in the bank. So when I think about, okay, with all of this time that I have, with the resources that I have now, what do I want to do about it? And that is when I started Tech Ladies, because I was a non-tech woman, and I really wanted to get into the industry. And it was through the help of the community that taught me how to code that I eventually understood the power and how awesome technology is. And I just think it's such a shame that women are pulled off by technology because they felt that it's not for them. So when I had this idea for Tech Ladies, immediately I started to think about what are all the lessons that I've learned so far, and how can I use those lessons to guide me for my future? Well, there's a few lessons that I've learned. A is testing ideas really quickly and easily, and B, focusing on driving traction, not media. And so with that lesson, what I did eventually was to start Tech Ladies in parallel to looking for a job, because I know about, it's almost like managing my risk, right? I don't want to jump 100% into an idea or startup or a community without first testing things out. And also, like, if that startup fails, that's fine. It doesn't affect my career in any big ways. Well, but fortunately, Tech Ladies didn't fail, and in fact, it was an, I dare say so myself, that I'm pretty proud of where we've been with Tech Ladies. Today, we've grown to a community of over 4,000 members in Asia, and we've trained hundreds of women in basic programming skills, and saw a handful of them eventually switching careers into tech. And these are pet groomers, gymnastic teacher, air stewardess, who, through the help of the community and the Tech Ladies, switch careers to become software engineers, product managers, and designers. That gives me a lot of joy, even though this is a passion project. It's not actually what I do for a living. And one interesting thing that I learned is that the more you focus on traction, on delivering results, the more media would actually come to feature you. So For tech ladies, we have been featured by international and also local press, but these are press that came to us instead of us going to them. And I guess the bigger lesson here is also understanding that work is important to me, but my work or the results of my work does not define who I am. uh, when I look back at the days when I failed my startup, a lot of this depression and anxiety came about because my identity is so closely intertwined with the results of my startup, and I realized that it doesn't have to be that way. My character, my actions, my behavior defines who I am, not the work that I do, not the results of my work. So that's sort of a very big learning that I eventually discovered after all the experience that I had. And soon after studying tech ladies, I was then employed at a big American tech company, helping to build developer communities all around Asia and helping them with training and employment opportunities. And an interesting story about this working at this tech company was that you should recall this photo that I take in Hong Kong while on a boat ride. The first work trip that this tech company sent me was to Hong Kong as well. And I checked in, into my hotel and didn't really find it was anything of importance until I was chilling in the balcony of my hotel room. And that's when I realized that the balcony that I was in overlooks the path of the ferry routes. And it was just a very chilling sort of moment of realization that a year ago I was in one of the many ferries down in the harbor, feeling really depressed and lost about myself. And a year later, I'm on this swanky 5-star business hotel and looking over the harbor, the route that the ferry used to take, and probably like laughing now, just like look at all the sad people in the ferry ride. Just kidding. What I felt was really like a wave of emotion, and I got like some serious goosebumps because I went from feeling an absolute loser to thinking that perhaps finding passion or purpose, mission, and all those stuff are just like naive, being just me being naive. To here working on a passion project that I care deeply about, and working in a full-time and meaningful employment where I can still is that still aligned with my passion and my vision of what I want to do. So I guess on hindsight, I wish I could say that, I have all of this planned, guys. I knew exactly where I was going to end up. No. And back then I thought that the only success is defined by, success to me is just being a really successful founder of a tech company. It was not like that, not like where I am right now. And who knows, if I did persevere through my startup, I could be that image of success. But then again, I felt that, you know, I couldn't, I cannot reach out to grab new opportunities if my hands are full of things I cannot let go. And as I reflect the path that took me from my journey to where I am now, perhaps it was the anxiety, the pain, the disappointment that eventually lead me to where I am now. So it was about 10 years ago. I know it's a long time. 10 years ago when I started my journey in tech. And back then, I had a goal of helping people achieve to lead meaningful lives by making a career out of what they are passionate about. And and back then, the image of success is just being a successful founder that runs a startup that does that. To fast forward 10 years now, over the years, I have overcome so many challenges. I go through the journey that I share with you. And today, I am also I'm also helping people to live meaningful lives by having careers that aligns with their passion. So what I learned is that, I didn't know how success looked like, but it doesn't mean that I'm not successful now, because I am reaching the goal that I set out to do, but in a very different path. And so I want to close my talk with a key message here that I hope that resonates with you. I believe that there's a value in creating solutions that solve meaningful problems. And I think that the world needs more problem solvers. But this journey of starting up or creating a nonprofit is not going to be easy. And there are days that you're going to have, there are going to be days that are so bad that you struggle to get out of it. But as my story, if my story is an indication on how things could pan out, then I hope that you take this lesson with you and understand that failure is not fatal. It is not the end. And that's all I have to share with you today. So I know we don't have any questions, a Q&A section right now, but if there's any questions that you'd like to follow up, here is my email address and my Twitter handle. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for taking time out. Goodbye.